Good morning. You're listening to FloorDaily.net, and I'm Kemp Harr. This morning, my guest is Dan Hendrix, who's chairman and CEO with Interface. Dan, how you doing?
I'm good, Kemp. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for calling. Man, I know you've been busy. You just finished your conference call for second quarter. While you're getting ready for all of the second quarter reporting, you have a fire in Australia. You've negotiated the pending sale of Bentley Prince Street. And then this morning, you announced that you've increased your dividend. So pretty busy, aren't you?
Been a very busy quarter, that's for sure.
First, since you just finished your conference call, let's talk about that. Sales were just a little bit off, and earnings also a little bit off, but you're still feeling good about where things are headed, aren't you?
Yeah, but if you look at it directionally, sequentially we were up from the first quarter nicely. Sales were up 9%. We had a real tough comparison in orders last year. It was our best quarter in orders, and we were only off 4% of that. And if you take the negative currency impact of the euro, orders were flat. And we had a nice quarter coming out of our Americas business, U.S. and Latin America. So that all directionally says that hopefully the second half is going to be better than the first half.
Mm-hmm. You know, most of my listeners are tuned into what's going on here. So you're saying that the contract commercial business is going fairly well?
Depends on where you are in the world, but in the United States it's going well.
Yeah.
There seems to be a lot of activity around the commercial office markets and in education and hospitality and even in retail space. Mm-hmm. And I think we're having a lot of success in conversion of broadloom and maybe even some hard surfaces to our carpet tile products. So our whole segmentation strategy that we embarked on about 10 years ago, we're paying a lot of dividends to us.
Mm-hmm. And everybody knows that's listening that you're the largest producer of modular carpet in the world. I guess the one area where we all are kind of watching because it impacts us from both a sentiment standpoint and from a stock market standpoint is over in Europe. How are you feeling about Europe?
Well, you know, it's interesting because our European business, you know, we're one of the few players that is actually pan-European in Europe, mm-hmm. in the carpet space. And if you looked at Europe and you broke it into the geographic regions that we do business, mm-hmm. surprisingly, our UK business, which is about a third of our business, is flat. And when we started the year, we expected that to be down. So that's been a very pleasant surprise that business has held its own. Where you would expect to see declines, we're seeing them, and that's in Southern Europe.
Right.
And that business was down pretty significantly in the second quarter. But it seems to me like it's trying to stabilize, particularly France. The first 3 weeks were pretty much flat in local currencies in that market space. And then if you go on to Scandinavia, Germany, Holland, Belgium, those markets are actually growing for us nicely. And then we have a business in Eastern Europe and Russia that is also growing nicely. Mm-hmm. And our Indian business, which we put into European business because they manage it, that's moderating. And when you say about what's going on in Europe, I would say what you expect in Southern Europe is happening to us as well, but the other parts of Europe are pretty stable or growing for us. Yeah. So overall, when you put all that into the mix, our European business in local currency was only down 2% last quarter. We call it a tale of three stories, basically. The UK flat, the Southern European piece down, which you would expect, and then the other parts of Europe are growing.
Yeah, and nobody's going to be putting any flooring in the UK while the Olympics are going on, right?
We didn't really see a big pickup in carpet tile during the Olympics. London, for us, is really not that great. It's outside of London where we see a lot of good activity, so hopefully the other parts of the UK will continue to do business with us while the Olympics are going on.
All right, so you just finished your conference call, and I know you're packing your bag and headed off to Australia. You did have a fire there last week, but you're able to service most of the demand out of your plants in Asia, aren't you?
We are. Yeah, it was very unfortunate. We had a fire in the Australian plant. We just went through a whole big capital rebuilding program, and a lot of our people were extremely proud of that facility. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, no one was injured. Everybody got out of the plant. It was a total loss. But I will tell you, it's galvanized our people in that part of the world. Mm-hmm. Everybody's pitching in. There's tremendous customer goodwill. We were up and running Monday morning with our customer service and planning. And we contacted just about every customer that we had an open order with, and every customer that we contacted said that they would extend lead times for us to service their business. So that was great. And our people, they rallied around what's the supply chain and how do we service the customer from Thailand and China. And we've already got people up and running and increasing capacity in those two locations. So fortunately for us, we had a 3-hub manufacturing strategy: Australia, China, and Thailand. And we have excess capacity to service Australia, and so it's a matter of execution. And we should be up and running in 5 weeks delivering product on a make-to-order basis in 5 weeks to Australia.
And one of your big message points at NeoCon, which is the last time I saw you personally, was that in this products that you're rolling out now, you're rolling them out so that the platforms are similar and so you don't have color line issues, and that's the whole reason you're making these moves, right?
I mean, if you're going to be global, you need to actually create that value for your customer by providing them a global product, which, yes, that is what we've been trying to build out, and the Asia-Pacific region had already adopted an Asia-Pacific product offering, which means that 80% of the products that were manufactured in Australia could also be manufactured in Thailand. So we don't have to go through a lot of fabric adoption, as you know, adopting new yarns and new products. It's already there. It's just a matter of getting the yarn into Thailand and servicing Australia with an import model. Well, and by the way, 20% of our business was already being provided from Thailand into Australia.
And I guess everybody has heard that you're fully insured there, so there's not going to be a major impact from an asset standpoint, right?
Yeah, we had adequate insurance to cover lost profits as well as the facilities and so forth, and even excess costs while you're getting your supply chain up and running. So we should be okay from that standpoint.
Okay. All right, so let's move to the next item. Probably the biggest news item in this country now is this recent news that you have agreed to a pending sale for Bentley Prince Street. Not to get into too many details about that, but you, I think, were instrumental in the acquisition of them 19 years ago, and this got to be kind of bittersweet news for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very bittersweet for me personally and for the company, actually. When you looked at where Interface's strategy was, our strategy back in the day was really around interior finishes. Anything that an architect or designer specified, Interface wanted to play in that marketplace. And you remember we had a fabric business. Right. We got into a high-end broadloom business with Bentley Prince Street. We got into a high-end woven business with Firth. We got into access flooring. The strategy back then was to really diversify around interior finishes. And the strategy when I took over was really get back to our core business, which was the modular business. Yeah. And we put a lot of focus and resources into the Interface modular business. And I think Bentley Prince Street probably suffered a little bit from that because we were so modular-eccentric at Interface. And I think, the best thing for Bentley Prince Street is its independence, and it will allow Interface to focus on its core markets as well. Well,
and it's like I interviewed Anthony yesterday, and as I was talking to him, it's actually kind of good for the marketplace to have new funding for them. They can solely focus on what they're doing. It should be good for both companies, don't you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So last quick thing, we're about to run out of time, but you did announce this morning that you've increased your dividend. So talk about that for a second, if you would.
Yeah, we hadn't increased the dividend in about 2 years, and we try to increase it every year, but when we had the whole meltdown of the European crisis and so forth, we as a company decided we would delay it a year, but we feel pretty good about what's going on in our core markets and felt like it was time to raise the dividend. So we increased the dividend 0.5 cent from 2 to 2.5 cents.
Well, Dan, it's great to talk to you. I know you're really busy and have a good trip to Australia. We'll talk to you when you get back. Again, we've been talking to Dan Hendrix, who's chairman and CEO of Interface, and you've been listening to Kemp Harr and FloorDaily.net.